Hey, so before this video gets started, I just wanted to let you all know that this isn't any new content, this is just a supercut of my last 3 videos put together. I originally planned to do this entire thing as just one video that was going up on Christmas Day, but I figured it would make more sense to sort of trickle them out over the course of the month. So if you've enjoyed this series, thank you for watching, and please share this video around if you share any of the Gift of Fangames. It would really mean a lot to me, and I'm trying to get more people to watch the channel because my numbers have started to go down, and that's not exactly very fun to see. So please, share this video around if you enjoyed these, or any of the other content that I make. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm making in 2023 that I'm really excited to show you all. There might be one more video coming out this month, but just don't expect anything until 2023, I suppose. Thank you for watching, and happy holidays. It's getting to be that time of year. You know, my Christmas shopping just feels kind of empty. Despite the odd physical release here or there, most FNaF games I want others to experience aren't available as a physical gift. And that's primarily because they aren't FNaF games, they're FNaF fan games. I just don't think there will ever be a reality where I'm able to gift someone a physical copy of Five Nights at Fuckboys. So I settled for the next best thing. I can give all of you something. So I have lined up for you 3 fan games for the holidays. One is what I'd call a classic, another is more recent, and the final one is unlike any other fan game out there. I picked these 3 for all the different boundaries they cover, whether it be with story, gameplay, or humor. But they're my way of saying thanks for the support through thick and thin. These 3 videos, which I'm calling the Gift of Fangames, will be coming out in the days leading up to Christmas, with a supercut coming out on Christmas Day. I also have another video I'm working on that might be coming out on Christmas as well, but that one's much more in the air right now, and I'm assuming that by the time this comes out, there will be a certain announcement being made by a certain someone about a fan game I'm actually voicing in, so links to the Game Jolt page will be down below. I'm gonna be pretty busy this December, but I'm very excited. Until next time, I'm DMuted. Remember to subscribe, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, it's time for the Gifts of Fangames. Although I'm sure plenty of you probably are aware of Pop Goes as an IP, I don't ever really hear people talk about the original 2016 release, which for the record, is one of the only Pop Goes projects to actually ever come out. Trust me, this series has cancelled entries everywhere. Although nowadays it's outdated due to all the characters having redesigns in Pop Goes Evergreen, the game itself has never been a slouch, at least to me. So before we get into gameplay, I should mention story. Similarly to Five Nights at Candy's, Pop goes off of the original FNaF story, as if it were a spin-off or side chapter. In fact, Pop Goes and Candies, according to series creators Kane Carter and Emil Macco respectively, take place in the same universe. This has led to other statements that I won't get into, but will be putting on screen because they are funny. Anyway, in this story, Jeremy Fitzgerald, the night guard from FNaF 2, now known as Fritz Glade, has started his own restaurant years after his tragic story. In it, Toy Bonnie is the culprit of the bite of 87, and he's the victim. And his daughter, also named Bonnie, was killed and has become Black Rabbit. In the modern day, Pop Goes and Gang are animatronics that have been 3D printed onto endoskeletons, with the main draw of the restaurant being to have kids make their own toys and parts using the same 3D printers. While I think 3D printers is kind of a cop-out, not gonna lie, it does actually tie into gameplay in a meaningful way, which I'll get to. As a night guard, your task is to watch over the building after hours, and you're not alone. I don't just mean the animatronics either. Apparently your boss is sitting across the hall from you in his office. The threats you'll be up against include Pop Goes the Weasel, Sarah and Saffron the Squirrels, Blake the Badger, and Stone the Crow, and everything is very British. I even asked King Carter during The Baddest stream if Pop Goes would speak in a British accent. His answer, yes. Side note, if I were to ever do interviews on this channel, King Carter and Emil Mako would probably be at the top of my list. Just saying, if you're watching this, Kane, knock on wood. The gameplay of Pop Goes is elaborate and requires a degree of explanation. As a night guard, you have a camera system that you control through a cell phone. You use the cell phone for a couple different options, including turning on the ventilation and shutting down the power in a room. During gameplay, as stress and tension rises, your panic meter in the bottom left increases. When you reach maximum panic, you lose, as whatever animatronic acted last will be the one to kill you. You can decrease panic by looking outside the window to your right, but don't look too long, as Stone the Crow will turn his head and scare you, increasing your panic by a lot. The main way your panic will increase is by an animatronic getting too close for comfort. Pop Goes is the most active character, as he'll enter the room in the center and choose a room to go into. When he's in there, he'll use a 3D printer to print a piece of Black Rabbit. If he assembles Black Rabbit fully, you'll lose. You have to shut down the rooms with the 3D printers when Pop Goes enters them, as this will prevent him from using them. While you do that, also watch the ventilation around the building, as Sarah and Saffron crawl through them. If they reach you, they don't kill you, but they steal your phone. Without the ability to switch cameras or shut down rooms, your panic will increase dramatically. The way to stop these two is by making sure whatever vent they're in is turned on, as they can't move when it's too hot. Blake is actually somewhat similar. After activating, Blake will begin to make his way to the server room, where he can sever the internet connection and prevent you from using your phone. The way to stop him is to check the screen for a color to be displayed. All you have to do now is press one of the multicolored buttons in front of you to lure him away from the server and walk to you. When Blake gets bored, he'll try to get into the server room again. These four mechanics end up blending into a total chaotic mess. You're going to constantly find yourself falling behind on one animatronic or several, which is why I think it's a good thing you're actually given some leeway with Pop Goes, who's always the most immediate threat. Occasionally during gameplay, you'll get some Easter eggs featuring the toy animatronics, Stone, or this freaky robot thing, who I later found out was named Simon. Who is Simon? I'm still not exactly sure. The Pop Goes lore is deep, much deeper than most other fan games. In this original series, although Simon is our stand-in for the purple guy, Springtrap still exists, so there's technically two versions of the killer running around, one posthumous, and the other being a robotic recreation. Actually, I'll mention it here because I don't know when else I'll have the chance, but in one of this game's many cancelled sequels, there was going to be voice acting. As I recall, Kellen Goff, who's voiced various FNaF characters, including Funtime and Glamrock Freddy, he was going to be voicing Simon. Somehow, Kane was able to get an actual FNaF VA to come help him with a fan game before the fanverse even existed, and that's just not going to ever actually be in a game. What a shame. After beating Night 6, which although more challenging than other nights still really only took me 2 attempts, I found myself presented with a number of options. These included a custom night, some extras, and the credits. And this is honestly where Pop Goes goes from being a B+ fan game to a straight A. The custom night is simple, with some challenges that reward you with different metal renders of the characters, not too much to do there, although it's worth noting that while each of the normal nights are numbered, first night, second night, etc., this one is called Good Night, just a fun touch. In the characters profiles menu, we see some renders of all the animatronics and their little descriptions, with Stone being the most ominous, the implication being that your character is somehow hallucinating him whenever he appears in front of the camera. This is kind of impossible, but we'll talk why in a bit. Looking through development, we see each character in their earliest stages, whether it be concept art or 3D model. If anything, it's kinda cool to see just how far Pop Goes himself and the squirrels have come along. While the squirrels still do just kinda look like Sandy from SpongeBob to me, Pop Goes went from kinda looking like a bear to a much more clear European Weasel inspiration. We also have scrapped content. You could write an absolute book out of some of this stuff, and I do mean literally. Apparently, there was a scrapped graphic novel turned scrapped book turned, well, just put it in the game. The plastic gray, from what I can tell, would probably have been about the scrapping of the toy animatronics and explain why they sometimes make appearances in the game. I had Toy Chica a couple times myself. I kinda want to see this brought back in some way, as it's clear Kane Carter and the Pop Goes team had a lot to say. And then we have Morse the Mole, and the first time I saw him, my computer crashed and restarted. Then there's the minigame map, which lays out the map for the in-between night minigames. What do you know, it's a brain. Whose brain? The players? Well, we'll talk about that now, won't we? I honestly don't know whose brain this is actually supposed to be. My first thought was Fritz Glade, but he's the Bite of 87 victim. He'd have some parts missing. The last part of this extras menu I want to talk about before we talk about secret stuff is the credits. Although simple, it's just a neat feature and a fun time capsule. Kane Carter at age 18, Viznam at age 17. Already by then the two had become established figures in their community. Emil Mako is credited with loaning some spare models to Kane for the game. And in the sweetest thing I've ever read in a fan game, Lewis Dawkins, or Daco Games, as well as DA Games, donated collectively over $1,000 towards Kane's vet bill to save his cat from a dangerous lesion. This story has its own menu and everything. It's just very nice, and kind of explained to me why Kane considers Daco his favorite FNaF YouTuber. All in all, this credits menu just feels like the after party to a big production, everyone shaking hands and the big names up top talking about how honored they felt to be a part of it all. And when I say it all, I mean it's time for me to finally talk about what's hidden behind those challenges. No, I didn't do them myself. I value my sanity more than I value the funny Weasel man. So, there's Simon. Yep, how do I describe him? He's like Glitchtrap, kind of. Simon is a robot recreation of the character Simon Fitzgerald, who in the Pop Goes universe is the purple guy and thus Springtrap. Simon, being a recreation of that guy, is kind of a psychopath. Fritz Glade, Simon Fitzgerald's brother, had created the robot Simon and chained him to the wall out of fear of what he created. In the grave ending of Pop Goes, Simon has Black Rabbit kill Fritz, and in the cancelled Dead Forest sequel, he becomes the owner of the restaurant, I guess. Black Rabbit isn't a secret character, but much of their backstory is a secret, so I'll mention that now. Fritz Glade was the bite victim and became traumatized after the fact. After attending therapy for much of his life afterwards, he decided to confront his trauma head-on and name his daughter Bonnie Glade. However, one day wherein his daughter was wearing a mask depicting Toy Bonnie, Fritz broke down and killed her with an axe. Ashamed and repentant, Fritz buried her under a fountain in his backyard and created the Black Rabbit parts for her to possess. After Simon fully prints her out, she kills Fritz in a rage, and honestly, this part makes sense. According to Gemstone, and trust me, we'll get to him, Black Rabbit is the only character who can actually kill the player. Gemstone and Gravestone are both variants of Stone the Crow, and their main objective is to send different messages to the player. Gemstone carries a sign that says "Find the Truth," and Gravestone carries a sign reading out the death of Jeremy Fitzgerald, otherwise known as Fritz Glade. They don't have any story significance and are kinda just there. The next secret character is Sex Strings. They are a multi-armed robot with thin digits, and oh yeah, you play as them the whole game. Yeah, Strings originates as a kind of safety bot made for Fritz, as he was having nightmares of the puppet, and originally had Strings made as a way to fend them off. I should mention that Strings itself was originally a sort of religious ornament, but Fritz made the robot version later on. In-game, it seems that Strings' purpose is to prevent Pop Goes from creating Black Rabbit, which is why getting attacked by any animatronic is a game over. It allows Pop Goes to make Black Rabbit unchecked. Strings actually has two distinct designs, one made by Reddit user PandaCry, this is the ornament version, and the robot Sex Strings, which is actually made by Viznam. Despite being so important to the plot, whenever people bring Strings up, it's usually just because, oh my god, you play as a robot the whole time, that's so wacky, when really it has much more to do with how Fritz Glade as a character is incredibly lonely and tortured after everything he's done in his life. Then again, this is all based on the 2016 Pop Goes, and while Pop Goes Evergreen hasn't changed too much with the story from what we can tell, we know it's a reboot, so this is all subject to change. Oh, and I guess the Lux animatronics exist too, mostly just to replace Simon after you get the grave ending, so they're not important. The last two hidden characters in this game I do not believe are considered canon, but I might as well talk about them. The Daco animatronic appears if you turn on the television set on camera 9, he says a YouTuber thing and disappears. This was mostly just a fun Easter egg kind of thing. Like I said, Kane's relationship with Daco is pretty tight. The last secret character you can find in Pop Goes 2016 comes from the Custom Night menu. By inputting 2124 into the menu, you are greeted with Cyanide, a cyan version of Golden Freddy. This is actually in reference to the subreddit r/2124, which as far as I can tell was a private subreddit where the Pop Goes team was first formed. Cyanide was the group's collective mascot at the time. It seems like the subreddit was initially made for people to talk about the more mature side of FNaF, which is probably why Pop Go's story in general is really dark for a game where only one animatronic can actually kill you. So that's pretty cool. And with that, it's all done. Pop Go's 2016 is a bit primitive nowadays, but in 2016 I'd consider it a masterpiece, at least by Fangames standards, especially given how young all the developers were at the time. Kane Carter, of course, went on to make the Pop Go's name the largest name in association with the fanverse. FizNam is currently working on his own remake of the original Five Nights at Freddy's, and the rest of the team has for the most part gone on to work on other fan games. Voice actors, modelers, animators, texture designers. Even though I didn't play Pop Go's when it came out, I still have this feeling of nostalgia over it that I just can't shake. That's about it out of me today. I just really think that Pop Go's 2016 is one of the most exciting fan games I've ever played, and it's a shame that more people aren't that into it. So if this video made you at all interested in it, please go check it out on GameJolt, link in the description. That's all out of me today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. Peace. Ultra Custom Night is in many ways the ultimate FNaF fan game. Being an expanded recreation of Ultimate Custom Night, its existence is essentially to boggle players and test experts. My first exposure to Ultra Custom Night would be through a Yaz video covering the game. And while I think that video is good and definitely covers most content in good detail, I just couldn't scratch the itch and had to play it for myself. What I found was easily one of the most interesting FNaF fan games I could have hoped to play. So let's get started. The basic premise of Ultra Custom Night is the same as Ultimate Custom Night. You start with the character roster and have the ability to change the levels at which they appear, 0 meaning they're deactivated, and 20 meaning they're at their maximum aggression. Although this scale is consistent across most FNaF fan games, it's worth noting that the hardest people usually face these characters at is between levels 9 and 15. Putting any character at level 20 almost guarantees a difficult night ahead of you. But then, I've completed FNaF 2's Golden Freddy mode, that's 10 characters at their maximum difficulty. Surely I can handle— There are over 500 characters. I guess the idea behind this was that Ultimate Custom Night just wasn't enough with its 50 characters. These guys had to add a 0 to that. I figured the best way to talk about this game would be to talk about my own custom night, rather than cover all 500 characters. When crafting my custom night, I decided to stick with characters I knew and recognized, and ones that I had some idea of how they acted. I also decided to really only focus on 3 systems, those being the vents, the doors, and the office. I wasn't exactly ready to deal with the task system, a darkroom system, exposure system, toxic system, GPS system, Chipper and Son system, Fury's rage system. Hell, I was barely getting my footing with the camera system. Did I mention those yet? No? Well, they exist. And the controls for this— oh my god, I need to see a TAS for this game. I don't think Mozart could handle a game with this many keys. So let me bring you through a couple of the characters I ended up facing up against. Springtrap and Ennard were obvious picks for me, not just because they're the 2 biggest final bosses in the series, but also because they're piss easy to deal with in Ultimate Custom Night. But I thought having someone in the vents to occupy me would be a good source of difficulty. I added Toy Chica and Withered Bonnie as well, which is totally fine, we're still not going to insane. Next was the skeleton, who appeared often. But then I came to the realization that this custom night wasn't too exciting. I had added the Nightmare Rat from Five Nights at Candy's 3, but he wasn't being too pesky. So I went digging through the character roster and added Malhair to my night. Malhair was by far the biggest challenge of the night, although I should say that what this game calls Malhair, most people call Glitch Trap. Being that getting Malhair to calm down required me to constantly search for Faz coins on the camera, it distracted me often from things in my office, and I nearly lost a Springtrap. And of course, since it is a FNaF game, I added Markiplier to the list. It slowly dawned on me that this game was actually some of the most fun I had ever had playing a FNaF fan game, if only for the amount of customization and random characters. In fact, my night wasn't complete without True Sans. Yeah, this night ended with me in an Undertale-style fight against Sans. Kind of. I think it's some kind of fan character, but it has the Game Theory logo on it when you hover your cursor over it. This isn't even the only Undertale reference in this game. In the trophies menu, clicking on the red trident brings you to a fight against Asgore, the Monster King, in a very Freddy and Space-style boss battle. Although honestly, Mega Man might be more accurate, this fight is extremely hard. Also, requiring me to use the shift button to shoot, it just kept prompting my sticky keys window to pop up, making this fight that much harder for no real reason. But I wasn't satisfied with just that. I had to have myself a final boss, so I decided to battle it out against the last character on the list, the hardest fight, Eminem. Eminem has 4 different ways he can attack. The first is he can spawn in your office, where he'll raise the noise level. This doesn't kill you, but it raises the noise level and aggravates other animatronics that are noise aggravated, like Lefty or Music Man. The second method is similar to the first, except he'll be in the props room on the sister location floor. When he's here, you need to switch the boombox to techno, which will make him run away because he hates techno. The third way is through your halls. He'll appear on the left or right side of the first floor halls, close the door on him to keep him away. And the final way he can kill you is with a barrage of rats. You can't let your cursor touch them, or it's an instant loss. At only level 10, Eminem was a challenge on his own. I cannot imagine how he'd be when combined with other animatronics, especially those who are noise activated. And that's not even it! Although I'm sure a lot of you may know this game in the state that it was in a Yaz video covering it, the game has received a fairly large update since, adding in a campaign mode that throws different challenges and a story at you. Did I do much of this campaign? No, not really, that's not what I downloaded the game for. But it's there for those of you who want a more curated version of this game. I personally couldn't stomach it for more than a few minutes. I think it's the Rainbow Freddy that's throwing me off. But I at least beat the first challenge of this mode, essentially just being a very basic night against a small handful of animatronics. The only one I actually had any difficulty with was Freddy, but I got used to him in time. Oh, and when I say Freddy, I mean Teaser Freddy. Can't forget that. All in all, I ended up playing this game a lot longer than I thought I would. The thing with Ultimate Custom Night is that I don't ever really feel motivated to play it that much. A lot of the mechanics are ridiculous and come down to chance, and when you're dealing with so many enemies, it can just come off as too frustrating to even feel like playing. Ultra Custom Night somehow avoids this, and I think it's just because there's so much content you can play, both if you want a serious challenge, and if you want Markiplier and the Skeleton to f*** with you. So that's Ultra Custom Night, the second game on our 3-day advent calendar. I gotta say, this is actually turning out to be kind of fun. We'll see how long that lasts. Tomorrow's episode is all about a fan game that was huge back in its heyday and launched the career of a certain developer. Until then, I'm DMuted. Be sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to have a happy holiday. Peace. Hey, so this is the first and probably not the last time I'll have to do this, but viewer discretion is advised for this episode. I can't bleep out everything you hear. I try to keep things mostly PG-13, but I guess you could say this video is gonna be rated R. So if you're cool with crude or offensive humor, swearing, and some disturbing content, go ahead and keep watching. If you aren't, you're best to click off now. That's all. Peace. Merry Christmas. We're almost there now, so let's wrap it up with the final gift of the season. One common through line between most FNAF fan games is the office gameplay, whether that be an actual office, a bedroom, or in Pop Goes' case, a computer station. But this fan game doesn't have any of that. It's not a scary fan game. It doesn't want to wow you with its cool and unique personas, and it doesn't want you to ever be bored. This is the half-game, half-visual novel Day Shift at Freddy's, created by DirectDoggo. Day Shift at Freddy's is pretty much the summation of all the FNAF in-jokes from its era. Whether it be Toy Freddy being overweight, Balloon Boy being annoying, or Chica being a woman, has it aged badly? Kind of. But if you're in the right mindset while playing, I think the humor can be very enjoyable. If you want to get in the right mindset to play, just know that All-Star by Smash Mouth and Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley are two of the most important tracks in the series. I don't really have any behind the scenes info for this game, so instead I'd like to focus on what the creator, DirectDoggo, did after the series was finished. Being that these games are for the most part visual novels, that's where you find DD now, with a game you can buy on Steam right now called Dial Town. It's a dating sim where everyone has a phone for a head, and you play as a strange creature whose only desire is to mate. I haven't played it myself, but The Baddest recently streamed it if you want to see someone else go through this admittedly bizarre scenario. What I find most funny is how directly connected Dial Town is to this fan game, as the phones for heads thing came from this game. We'll explain that more later. I also need to emphasize that although I may reference Day Shift 2 and 3 now and then, this review will only be covering the first game. I feel like this is the best starting point for players, and to be honest, the other two games really don't make much sense until you have some idea of the first. For example, your player character, the orange guy, is named Jack Kennedy, but you can name him whatever you want here. This is because Jack is kind of undercover in the first two games, I think. It's not like much of that matters in this first game, where the tone is more comedic than serious, but by the third game, the story has started to take itself seriously, and DirectDoggo puts more emphasis on a narratively driven plot. While some people might prefer this kind of storytelling, that's not really why I pick up a Day Shift game. Some people regard Day Shift 3 as not just the best game in the series, but the best fan game in general. So of course, all three games in their collection form will be linked down below. For the first game, things are incredibly simple, with most playthroughs lasting less than an hour. You play as a new employee at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where your boss, a man with a phone for a head, gives you instructions on how to do your job. But first, he asks for your name. Last time I played, I had named myself Jerry Seinfeld and made the best fanfiction money can buy. However, this time my mind went blank, so I wrote Kane Carter's name. I think I was possessed. After going to the backrooms to get my Springlock suit on, I met the game's main antagonist, the Purple Man, or the Aubergine Man, or later, Dave. Dave proposes a little plan to us, one we can join him in on, or rebel against him. We can choose to help him kill 5 kids, or we can decide to not take part. If we choose not to take part, which is what I did, he leaves. We won't be seeing him again, just cleaning up after him. After doing my work in the Cool Cat costume, I retire for the night and a minigame starts. These minigames happen each night and are short, but the restaurant itself is a bit of a maze, so I got lost a couple times. Oddly enough, I think a mini-map might have helped. Or, something other than making every single room the exact same shape. Maybe this is just nitpicking. I mean, this game is so stylistically different than most other fan games that it's hard to even criticize it on something like this. It has a very strong identity that makes shittiness somehow feel intentional, like you're playing a joke on yourself. After day 1, we move on to day 2, where not much of note actually happens. By now, Dave has killed the kids, but they're in the dumpster outside right now, so the animatronics remain unhaunted. On this day, I went ahead and repaired the Happiest Day arcade game, where the puppet told me what each of the dead kids like to do, as a way to invite them to the birthday party they missed out on. So I made a pepperoni pizza, gave Bonnie his face, changed Freddy's music box to play Rick Astley, and threw a firecracker in the urinal. The last thing I had to do came on day 3, where I saved up enough money to buy a crowbar. Doing this, I smashed the salad bar, and release the spirit inside Foxy. By the way, the ghosts are in the animatronics by now. On day 4, the restaurant's been closed, since Phone Guy, who by the way is named Scott Cawthon, finds out Dave hid the final child inside the Mint Monster suit, which is the one that the purple guy wears. Phone Guy has the room sealed up and tells us to go home. On day 5, we finally reach the birthday party, where police surround me and tell me I killed those kids. Unfortunately, there's no stopping the long arm of the law. That is, until the rat shows up. But who's going to save us this time? Why, the real Fredbear, of course. Gaze upon his spring locks. Using the opportunity created by the sheer chaos of it all, Kane Carter finally attends the happiest day and achieves the best possible ending in Day Shift at Freddy's. But then I thought, wow, that took me 30 minutes, and while it was fun, there was a lot more I could have done. I figured it was worth at least one more playthrough. So this time, when I approached Mr. Aubergine Man, I agreed to kill some kids. I gotta admit, this darker route kinda made me uncomfortable, probably because the game relies so heavily on stock photos of real kids that I was pretend luring into the back room with promises of cake. After feeling like an absolute criminal, Purple Guy and I strangled some toddlers and left. The next day was all about my new best friend Dave and I disposing of the bodies. I nearly got caught by Phone Guy and had to stand with a bag of corpses behind my back. I threw some in the dumpster and went on with my day, grabbing the next couple corpses and unfortunately being approached by the health inspector. He was very French. After killing him, Phone Guy told me he owed me a favor after this one I'd later use in a very terrible way. I called him into the office and asked if I could, well, I'll just show the clip.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
What on earth are you doing?
After that nightmare, I finished throwing out the bodies and went home. On the third day, Purple Guy was freaking out about being caught, so I had to break some security cameras, and we got a little closer. I'm blazing through these day shifts now. Purple Guy and I always leave early. On day 4, the place has been shut down, but Purple Guy lets me in. He asks me to pick an animatronic to repair, either Fredbear or the rat, as we're going to need it during a police sting being set up for tomorrow. It turns out Purple Guy hid the final kid in his own suit, shocker, and Phone Guy found it. I picked Fredbear since in the other ending, Purple Guy activated the rat. The stage is set for day 5. After I arrive, it's not police who swarm me like last time, but instead the haunted animatronics. Not wanting to fight, I ran down the hallway and opened the safe room, since Phone Guy said earlier that they can't see inside that room. Thinking I got away, I was instead treated to getting arrested, but hold the Phone Guy's head because Fredbear has been activated. But it's not Fredbear. Dave repaired him into Breadbear. Breadbear is hungry for the flesh of virgins, but he's shot by an officer and dies. Purple Guy betrays me, and I get the soapy ending where I rot in jail. And that, in short summary, is each of my playthroughs of the game, which took me roughly an hour and 20 minutes due to dying a couple times. And aside from the occasional use of the word hecking here or there, I do think that a lot of this game's humor does still hold up, especially when it comes to Purple Guy. There's a very dark humor surrounding how casually he talks about murder, how he hates his job, and his repeated use of the name Old Sport when referring to the player. Phone Guy is also a really fun character. He's your boss, but he's also not happy to be there. Apparently, he never leaves the pizzeria due to the contract he signed 15 years ago. Every now and then, his persona breaks, and he advises the player to escape or something like that, which is just pretty funny when it's in the heat of the moment. There aren't many other characters. There's Matt, who's simultaneously the creepiest guy in the restaurant and also the most normal. Whenever you leave the area, it's so that you can escape before Matt steals your hymen. There's the health inspector, as I mentioned, incredibly French, and also you get to fight him, so that's cool. The cops, they vary in terms of humor, but you gotta love the one that shoots Breadbear. The real Fredbear is a character who would keep recurring in later day shift games, and kind of also in the Oof Troop's undeniably canon FNaF timeline. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be the same character, but they look pretty much the same, and it's the same idea. The rat honestly isn't that funny after the first time you see him, but he's just kinda out there and funny. The main 4 animatronics also all have unique traits. Kind of. Bonnie's a fucking loser who whines about not having a face. Freddy's just an asshole. Chica keeps saying things I'd rather not repeat lest I lose my monetization, and Foxy is even worse in that regard. Jack, or Orange Man, as a character is also really funny. No matter how you play him, he's pretty much just as outrageous as the other characters. He can be aggressively depressed, or just a weirdo who tells kids about his divorce while dressed as Cool Cat. And the best part is most of this stuff is stuff that gets carried into Day Shift 2. Which I won't cover at the moment, but I really feel like I should after talking about this game so much. In the end, Although it's hard to compare it to other fan games, I think Day Shift is one of the most beloved ones out there. It's crude, funny, and tells a story that vaguely resembles FNaF while also poking fun at it. It's a parody game that pulls off parody extremely well, and it let Direct Doggo, now called Direct Dogman, to craft his own unique story with Dial Town later on. So if you're interested in supporting this series, again, links in the description. Be sure to subscribe, and remember to have a happy holiday.